This meeting of the trustees of the Lamesa Independent School District is now in order. It is 5:30 p.m. on December 21st, 2022. A quorum is present with all board members present except Ron Mann. This meeting has been duly called and the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Ms. Benavides, would you please lead us in prayer?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, be with us tonight as we gather together to share the knowledge of what is expected of us as board members and as a team. Also be with Ron as he travels back from the accident that he came upon. Be with us, Lord. Be with Miss Orozco as she travels home tonight also. And Lord, help us eat this food for the nourishment of our bodies. Amen.
Amen. Okay, did anyone want to sign up for the public forum?
Yeah, anybody? No, there's nobody here to speak for the public forum. So.
All right, then I guess we will turn it over to Ms. Esperanza Orozco.
Hello, I'm Esperanza Orozco. I'm a TASB board consultant. I am also a sitting board member serving my third term. I have served as president for several years, vice president, and secretary, and I run our board officers academy and working on our new board member launch as well. I was also a teacher in the district that I served on for 11 years, bilingual certified teacher, and was union president for 7 years as well. So now I work for TASB and travel all over the state to help boards get their training done and making sure that they understand everything that they need to. There's a huge responsibility on us, and it's just time once a year, at least once a year, to touch bases and see what is happening and answer any questions you might have, especially for new board members. How many of you are new for the past year? So we have 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 3.
And Ron would be the fourth one.
Okay, so you have 4 new board members. That is a lot of new folks that are on the board. So working cohesively is so important. So these are our goals for today. One is going to appreciate the effectiveness of cohesiveness. And the second thing we're going to look at is understanding the various roles of the team, governance and management. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Now, when you run for the board, you run because you want to make things better, right? We all want to make things better. We're invested in our community. We might have grown up here, and we want things better for our kiddos or grandkids or so on. So 99% of the time, people run with that in mind. You know, no one runs to bring the downfall of the district. You all want to make it better. And one of the ways to make it better is to work cohesively as a team. So I will tell you, I was on a very dysfunctional team when I first started my first term. So much fighting, so much drama. It was terrible. And you know who it impacted? Our students. We had several schools that needed improvement. We had several schools that were really failing. We had one school that was almost taken over because we were not focused on student achievement. Instead, we were focused on personal agendas. We were focused on egos. We were focused on all the wrong reasons. Even though our intent was good, we got caught up in all that mess, right? And not until we decided to turn things around and we had a new amazing superintendent come in, did we change the way we're thinking, the way to get to our end goals. So that's going to be a huge piece because right now you have a wonderful opportunity. You have an interim superintendent. Mm-hmm. You're going to start looking for a new superintendent, and you definitely want to have that foundation of trust. We did not have that foundation of trust. Mm-hmm. So because there was no trust, we were not working effectively together to do what's right by kids. And so that really did change our viewpoint. And once we changed that, and we established that foundation of trust, we went from a low-performing to a high-performing district. We used to be high-performing way before. So we finally got back to high-performing. We went from being a toxic board to being an honor board in the state of Texas. So huge change, huge difference. And that happened because we had the right superintendent. We finally said, okay, we don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over. We know the bad behavior. We know these things are not good for our kids. So with a new superintendent, are we going to keep doing the same thing? Or are we going to use it as an opportunity to really focus on student achievement, really work cohesively together to make things better for our district? So we finally had that come to Jesus moment, and we said, okay, we've got to stop doing what we're doing. It's not working. And look at our failing schools. So things are so much different now. We have an amazing superintendent that's been with us for 5 years. We turned things around within a couple of years from failing schools. We changed that around. But trust is at the foundation of this. So one of the things that we talk about, just as a reminder of what a board is, who would like to read this for me? Ms. Rebecca?
The Board of Trustees is the governing body for the Texas Public Schools to effectively meet the challenges of public education. School boards and superintendents must function together as a governance leadership team.
So what is the key word there?
Together.
Together. So, running for public office, even with the best intent, sometimes there's a little bit of ego involved, right? It's my idea. We did it my way. And it shouldn't be about that, right? It should be about the end goal. So one of the things that I learned, not only from my board, but from training boards all over the state, is once you put that to the side, then you can really get the job done. When you stop thinking about it being mine and yours, and I'm going to be on this side and that side, when you stop thinking about that and say, what is best for kids, then you can really move forward. And that is, at the end of the day, we need to work together, whether you like each other or not. And I don't know how it is in your district, but in my district, I had to work with somebody I didn't like. But I said, you know what? It's okay. And it's okay that you supported somebody against me, because when I win, we're going to work together to move our district forward, because that's what our district deserves. That's what our students deserve. So keeping that in mind, that is the only way that you're going to meet that end goal. Because if you're like this, all 8 of you going in all kinds of directions, what does that create?
Nothing.
Exactly. Nothing. Nothing gets accomplished when you are moving in so many different directions. And it's my way and your way and his way and that way and this, and let me get involved in all these things. When you are like that, you are not focused on success. So it's important to make sure that you all are going in the same direction. And you go in the same direction when you follow your mission, when you follow your vision, and when you truly believe in what you all are doing is student first. When you focus on that and you are laser focused on that, then you can really move things around. So when you have all those arrows going everywhere, this is what happens. You have low morale. You have high turnover. I saw your turnover at 25%. You have retaliation, dysfunction, improvement required campuses. All of this happens, right, when you're not focused. And so we don't want this. We want to make sure that your district is the best and you're serving the 1,600 plus students to the best of your ability, and your staff as well, right? Because that morale goes from the top down. And if people see the fighting like they saw our fighting, we had a high turnover rate. We had like almost 20% turnover rate. But after we had this new philosophy and we started working together, it went all the way down to 12%. Huge difference in the turnover piece. Huge difference. We saw it, and they learned from our example, right? It was about, we as board members are ambassadors for our district. So even though you might not say, I'm Rebecca and I'm representing the school district, when they see each and every one of you, they see the face of the school district. And if we're behaving badly, if we are talking badly about our district, then that's a representation to the community. So it is important that you remember you're the ambassador of the district. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. So let me put that right there. You can say, yes, we have some challenges that we're facing, but you know what? We're working on it. We have a plan. We're not perfect, and we did make mistakes, and we're still making mistakes, but we're learning, we're growing, and we're moving forward. Acknowledging that is okay, and saying those things. We have challenges, but we're working together, right, to solve this. So one of the things that I like to work with teams on is building their social contract. What is a social contract? A social contract is a foundation for good governance. So one of the things that we did when we did not have trust and our board had this infighting, our superintendent said, okay, stop. This is what we're going to do. We are going to talk about the expectations that we have of each other and of ourselves. And we're going to articulate that, because it's not enough to think, oh, April knows how I want to be treated. Oh, Ernest knows what, and he's not doing what he should be. If y'all don't talk about it, right? So we spent several hours working with our superintendent on this social contract. And it was a huge piece that really turned things around, because we had really robust discussions over it. We had very robust discussions. And it's like, well, what do you mean, Kevin, by what you're saying? So we had that discussion, right? But at the end of the day, we were able to answer these questions and move forward together. So we're going to answer some questions today. You have some Post-its in front of you. So grab your Post-its. You don't have to write your name, but we are going to use them. I know, right? It's so exciting. So how can a social contract help your team? Well, first of all, you articulate your expectations. You don't assume that Cindy and Ron and Ernest and Rebecca and April and Kevin and Trey and even your superintendent, that they know how you want to be treated. You don't assume. We cannot assume these things, because people are all different, right? So the expectations are clear, and you articulate that. There's responsibility to yourself and to each other. Well, Rebecca, you're not following our social contract. This is what we voted on. You're not following it. Having that discussion. And not only that responsibility to yourselves, but to the community. We actually posted our social contract. And so I have boards post it, adopt it, they post it. And actually the community holds us accountable as well. And says, Esperanza, I saw the meeting last night. You acted so inappropriate, and that was against your social contract. They have done that to us and to other boards too. And they have said, you're not following it. And you know what? At the end of the day, we are accountable to the community in making sure you do what you say. If you say something, you should do it. Your word is your bond. And that's the bond you have with the community. And the community elected you, or you were appointed, I don't know. Everybody's different, but there's that accountability piece that's important. Okay, so number one. You're going to write a number one on your Post-it. So make sure to write a number one, because I don't want to lose these Post-its.
How many numbers are we going to have?
You're going to have 4 numbers, so you have 4 Post-its. Okay. But if you need more, I will give you more. Okay? So the first question we're going to answer, and even your interim superintendent's going to answer, because this is something that you should definitely be a team of 8 about. First question, how do you want to be treated by the leader? Rebecca's the leader. She is the president. How do you want to be treated by the leader? So take a moment and jot it down, whether it's a complete sentences or it's a few words that you want to say. But think about that, because you are articulating to Rebecca how you want to be treated by her. And I'm going to challenge you a bit, because I have board members that always do this. They always write, with respect. Well, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? So don't just Say respect.
I don't
You gotta go deeper. Exactly. Most people will take that
So what does
easy
respect
way.
look like to you?
Yes. What does it look like to you? What does it feel like to you? What does it sound like? You know, how do you know it's respect, right? If you write the word respect. And that's with other words as well that you might use. I have to nudge you to go a little bit deeper because it looks different for everybody, right? When you're done, put your pen down so I know that you're done. Make sure you put a number 1 on it because I will be collecting them all.
Do we have to put our name?
Don't, you don't have to put your
Okay.
name. But I will be collecting them all, and I will gather all the answers, and then we're going to come up with a social contract for you all. And I will tell you that social contracts is something that can be done with departments, that can be done in classrooms. So we have seen this effectively work in our transportation department, in our custodial department, in our cabinet or your executive leadership. We have seen it in the classroom as well, where we walk into a classroom and the classroom has their social contract. And they can articulate that. Who wants to start? Because you're going to read it out loud.
Oh.
Okay? Rebecca?
Be open and give opportunity for discussion and without raising your voice and maybe with a smile.
Okay? So be open, right? Okay?
Respect, have an open communication and trust to feel like all of our opinions matter.
Okay. So you went a little further than respect, right? By telling us what that looks like. Kevin?
Respect opinions and ideas.
Respect opinions and ideas.
Listen with an open mind.
Open mind. I keep hearing open.
Be willing to have an open discussion on everything.
That's pretty much
Open
the
discussion.
same thing. Just treat it as if my opinions matter, like it was to be heard, whether it's agreed upon or not. I think we're all just new, so it's not that she's not doing it. It's just
Yes.
we're new. You know.
Sure.
This
But
is my-
you want to articulate that, right? You
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
articulate. You can't assume she knows.
Yes, ma'am.
So it is so good to have that discussion and say it out loud. It has like this sense of ownership when you say it out loud, right? It's like, that's my stand. Yeah, that's what I want to be.
Respect and listen to be heard in all discussions and topics.
Okay.
Did you go, Ernest?
Basically the same thing. Respect also and listen to us and don't come in here just thinking that because you're the president, you know, your decision is it and that's it. Listen to us and, you know, just listen to us.
Okay, mine I guess is a little different, but I'd like to be treated by the leader with a sense of transparency, which means that to share what she thinks without holding back, and also with a sense of understanding of the demands of the superintendent's role and job responsibilities.
Okay. I'm going to pick those up. And we had some themes, right? We had the open, furthering on the respect piece. So we'll see some overlap in some of these questions. But again, you cannot assume that respect means the same to everybody. So let's go to number 2. So write number 2 on your Post-it. Okay. Who wants to read the question for us? Trey, can you read that for us?
How do you want to be treated by each other?
How do you want to be treated by each other? And I always get this. Well, isn't it the same as a leader? Is it? That's up to you to decide. It is up to you to decide. Some people are very specific when it comes to the leader, and you might have some overlap, but think about it. Think about each other. And if you're going to say respect, you need to elaborate. Need to elaborate with that respect. I heard a lot of openness and value. My opinion matters. I matter. You might not have to agree with me, but you can do it respectfully. And what does respectfully look like? We actually had this discussion on several districts that I went to when they said, somebody said, I want to make sure they listen and they respectfully, argue with me. Well, what does that look like? Because for some people, it means saying, oh, yes, you are right. That's what they think respect looks like. And some other people say, no, they don't have to say that. They just need to say, oh, I never thought of it that way. I still don't agree, but I never thought of it from that perspective, right? Because everybody's bringing a different perspective to this board. Everybody has different experiences, right? Different backgrounds, different educational experience, different experience here in our community. You're bringing that, and that adds value. So when you're done, go ahead and put your pen down to show me that you're ready. And then we'll go backwards.
You're not checking spelling, are you?
We're just gonna play it.
Well, I'm struggling with a word here.
Oh, don't fret.
Got to get our phones out to figure out how to spell it.
Well, I typed all of this up, so I have spell check, so don't
Okay.
worry.
Where's the noodles at so we get to hit each other? We should look at each other like this.
No noodles to hit. We can do pillows to hug. How do you want to be treated by each other? Wow, somebody has some really pretty writing. Wow.
That's not mine.
I don't know.
That's not mine.
I think most of these have really good writing. I taught for so long, but my writing was never so pretty. I'm pretty blind.
I left mine in the car.
I have bifocals and everything.
I left mine in the car. It's so sad. Because I use them to drive.
Yes.
I like use it, take them off for a minute, and I'm like, never has me ready.
Are we ready? Okay, so we'll start backwards. So we'll start with you.
Okay. So it says, how do you want to be treated by each other? I said, we need to treat each other like professional adults who put personal feelings aside and are willing to come to consensus, knowing that decision making is a process of give and take and to be done with what is best for students in the district.
Because she's a teacher.
I know.
Beat that.
Okay, I didn't write a complete sentence, but okay.
Can we just vote on ours?
That was
No,
pretty
y'all's is
good.
important too.
You need to go back. You can put the last. Well, she's one of the pretty writings. that I saw.
Yeah, I know what she does.
Okay, mine is willingness to listen and work together and compromise and back each other up in the community as well.
That's a good one.
That's
Very good.
important, right?
Just be open-minded and listen to what we all have to say and come to an agreement to make things better for our kids and our community.
And that goes back to respecting the body corporate. So especially the new board members that are here, one of the things that we're supposed to do, and is our responsibility as board members, is when you make a decision, you respect the body corporate, even if you didn't agree with it. So even though I voted no, okay, the vote is done, it passed, I'm not going to go out in the community and say, that was the dumbest idea we had. And believe you me, I sure wanted to do that several times. You know, we voted for a $5 million pool, and I was on the no side. $5 million when we couldn't give a raise to our employees. I was livid. But once it passed, I was like, okay, I can still have my opinion and say, I voted no because, however, now I must respect the body corporate. And I had to swallow that, because that is the right thing for our team. That is usually in your board operating procedures, respecting the body corporate. And it's a way to be a functional, cohesive team. So even though we didn't vote my way, I'm not going to keep bringing it up. Keep bringing it up to the community and to the board, right? So that's really important. Okay, who's next?
Okay. I want to be included on discussions that has to do with the district and have a say-so on my opinion.
Okay.
Mine was when having a conversation to always remember we're on the same team and have mutual respect. We may have different opinions, but one goal: what's best for staff and kids.
What's best for staff and kids. At the end of the day, that's what matters, right?
I'm gonna go back to the respect word again. But be respectful to each other and genuine with each other.
So respectful looks being genuine.
Genuine is a word I was having trouble spelling.
Okay. I have trouble with that one too.
Told you.
It still don't look right.
Not being a genius.
And then show concern and care for each other in our opinions and how we feel about things and our beliefs, and the decisions that we're making.
And articulating that, right? So I can say, Kevin, thank you for sharing that perspective. While I still don't agree with that vote or that decision or, how this is going to go down, I never thought about it that way. Or thank you for being vulnerable and saying something. Because there's been lots of times where I have been the one no vote, right? And I want the rest of my board members to understand why I'm voting no. And I understand the votes are not going to be there to go another way. But I just want to be heard. I want to make sure that I'm representing the community and I'm doing my due diligence, right? So being respectful and genuine and saying, hey, as Ms. Brown said, thanks for sharing that. Doesn't mean I agree with you, but thanks for sharing that because it really did bring, yes, exactly.
I just put the same, you kept saying understanding, and that's what I put, I know for me, you can ask April and Rebecca, I probably talk to them the most out of everybody here, but I've got a really loud voice. Doesn't mean I'm trying to talk to you, I'm a passionate person, and you're going to hear it. It doesn't mean I'm trying to get you to think my way, but I just want to be, understood and to be able to come to, some type of, maybe not, compromise something, we ain't got to agree. But I'm the same way, like you were talking. There's been a couple times already that I voted no because it might have been something like, "Hey, hold on, I didn't get this information. It wasn't that I was against it, but I don't want the same thing like you said. I don't want like look at him. He voted no again. He voted no all. I don't know what This wasn't explained to me. It doesn't mean I'm against you. So I put understanding because I'm one of those that I gotta have some type of convincing to get me to vote the way you want me to. It's not that I think you're wrong. I just want to know facts. So that's what I put.
And at the end of the day, it's about the data, right? It's about the data and understanding. And what we as board members need to do is do our due diligence. We see the agenda packet, we see the agenda, then I'm going to come and talk to the superintendent. I don't understand why we're buying 50 buses. I know the information's in here, but can you talk to me a little bit more instead of, letting all that out at a board meeting, right? You have that discussion. You never want to blindside your superintendent or, two other people that you talk to. If you talk to two other people, because remember we have a walking quorum situation, you can only talk to two people. So it's important to say that and submit those questions in advance and not wait until the day of the board meeting. I'm not saying that's what happens with you.
No, and I
In
call,
general,
well, I make phone calls to all of them on Wednesday or Thursday morning.
to see if they have questions.
Yeah, to see if anybody has any
Yeah,
questions.
and that's a
Yeah.
great opportunity to ask those questions because you want to do your due diligence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because at the end of the day, you want to be fiscally responsible, you want to be responsible to the students and everything. And, it's important to just ask those questions. Who else? Did everybody go?
Oh,
Yeah.
That was it.
Okay, awesome. So that's number 2. Now write number 3. Remember, we have 4 questions. And I'm trying to track the time because I know that this is the day before a holiday. Or you're working from home remotely. So, there goes some, right?
Unfortunately not.
Calls them all.
No such luck.
How do you think the leader wants to be treated by you? Now, this is an interesting question, and I get a lot of interesting comments because I always hear, and let me make that distinction, I always hear, well, they're the same as us, so it's treated like everybody, like each other. Well, they have the same vote as you, however, being president, there is a huge responsibility. Who has been president here before? Other
She's
than
the only
Rebecca.
one. She's the only one.
So there is a huge responsibility to be president. So don't make that mistake to think, oh, well, are they saying her vote is more important than mine? Absolutely not. Your vote is the same. She has the same opportunity to discuss as everybody else. However, there is a lot of responsibility to being president with agenda setting, with facilitating a meeting, with facilitating public forum and comments and disgruntled employees and people that come in front of you. It's a lot to facilitate and keep track of everything and follow your Robert's rules and not do anything that that you're not following your policy, your board operating procedures, Robert's rule, and legal. There's a lot of things to maneuver. And sometimes people don't understand the responsibility that comes along with being that spokesperson for your board, being that figurehead of your board. Still has the same vote, but there's a lot of responsibility attached. So how do you think the leader wants to be treated by you? And make sure you write the number 3 on there. When you're done, put your pen down.
I think I made up a new word this time.
Nice.
You need help spelling it?
You have to realize I'm an accountant.
That's not the way your brain works, right?
I'm easier to just like say it.
I
It's
know.
easier for me just
You
to.
don't even have anything on it. You're all
You
explaining.
have to write it because I'm going to capture this.
Huge.
And I'm going to create it. I'm going to create the social contract.
He's gonna need like 2
Oh,
per
no.
question. He needs
I tell
8.
people
He
how I
needs
feel.
8 sticky notes.
Well, tell me. You need to tell me and write it. I want to capture your thoughts.
I've got a blank.
Well,
It's a
maybe
little
when
hard
you
one.
hear others,
I'll go first.
you'll be able to come up with something. We're good?
Yes. Oh, no.
That's
sorry.
because y'all have been working together so long.
Oh, okay, no.
Yes.
We just do so good together.
I mean, I know her, but I just can't put it down.
Okay, we'll start with April.
Okay. Um, I think we should our leader, any leader, want to be treated with grace and understanding, non-judgmental, and to feel supported.
That's a good word. Grace. I know I needed a lot of grace when I was president, trying to navigate through COVID. You know, that first year, you know, and even the second year, we made mistakes. You know, and having that grace and empathy. Kevin?
Going back to the
the
word
word I was
respect again. I think she's going to be treated with respect, professionalism, open-mindedness, and understanding.
Okay, I like how you went deeper with professionalism, open-mindedness, and understanding. Shay, you ready?
No,
Or
not
you-
yet.
I'll come back to you.
You can't use the word.
Okay.
Um,
You need to go further, but you're always going to know. Go further.
Okay. I said, I think she wants us to treat her with compassion for all of the work and extra time it takes for her to prepare for meetings and communicate with all board members individually. Her job is also very stressful.
Yes, it is.
I know when she sees my name, she's like, I what?
very time consuming.
You say, I ain't
I can already hear you through the text.
I feel like she'd want to be appreciated, heard, and understood.
You know, sometimes it's a little bit difficult, right, when you're president? Because as president, you're facilitating the meeting. And you might want to say something really, really bad, and you might want to say it, but as a good president usually allows for everybody to say whatever they need to say, and then they say what they need to say. And usually everybody's already said it, so it's kind of like,
I don't have to
oh,
say.
I'll have to say it because everybody already said it.
Right.
But then, as president, it's kind of like, well, don't you have an opinion? Don't you, you know? So you get criticized either way.
No, but
Right.
like for Rebecca with our meetings, with the stuff that she's been through, she has handled. I mean, the amount of strength and everything that she's had to. I mean, we're facing it with her, but she's leading it, and it's not easy. The criticism and everything she's handled, I'm so impressed. Like, she's.
I don't know that
Amazing.
I don't know that I could.
I,
It takes
I
restraint.
always say that the amount
Lot of restraint.
like forgiveness and calm and open-minded, and I'm like mad, and she's like, April, you just have to don't worry. And she's like, she's good.
After the meeting, she'd be like, why did you say that? I'm like,
Yes.
For such a small person, she can take a big punch.
Yes, yes.
Definitely,
I
because
like it.
she's the example. She is the example to the other board members because a good president brings the team together. The good president is an example. So even when you don't like a board member, like I didn't, and I was president, I had to treat that person exactly like everybody else. You know, it's okay, I don't like you personally, but I leave that outside. And I have to call on you, and I have to be respectful and professional at all times because I'm the example. And especially when you're being streamed, right? I know your district doesn't have to be streamed. It's 10,000 plus that has to be streamed. But that adds another layer of stress, making sure you're doing everything right. Okay, who are we at?
Ready?
Oh, Trey's ready.
Go.
I just I put trust, dignity, respect, treat it as an ally instead of, you know, I'm the president, this is what, you know, I'm sure that goes through her head. I may not have me running the show here, but I've run the show in many other areas of life throughout my life, and I know what it feels like sometimes when you gotta, you know, make those tough decisions. And I think, you know, sometimes she might be you know, she might trust April, but maybe not me and Kevin so much, so she may not want to come to us. And you know, I'm willing to listen to anybody, you know, and let her know that I got your back. We may not agree on everything, but when we're up here, we're together. Whether it's me, Cindy, Ernest, Dolly, or whoever. You know, I've said that to Dolly many times. I got you. You know, I know that she's here to do a job or whatever, but I've made that clear to her. I don't want you to be the scapegoat for people to blame you. You know, and same thing with Rebecca. You know, I just wanted to have that feel that we, you know, I trust you. You know, we may not agree on everything, but I trust you.
And
I'm
it's
with you.
huge, right? When a community sees that cohesiveness. And you're right. I've had presidents and I've disagreed with the way they've handled stuff, but I don't do that publicly. You know, and when you're under pressure, it's a totally different ballgame, right? So having that grace, again, going back to that grace and understanding, I'm not going to be perfect. I might mess up Robert's rules. I might mess up a public forum. I might mess up, but you know what? I'm doing the best, and I'm trying to be the example and have that constraint.
That's no reason to be like, oh, get rid of Rebecca. She didn't do
because
nothing.
she didn't say this or she didn't do enough.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to
Yes,
being
ma'am.
that ambassador of the district.
Did you write all that, Trey?
No.
Yes.
I wrote.
Keywords?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I believe she wants to be treated with respect, back to that word respect. And sometimes you just have to take a step back and just listen to her decisions and respect her decisions and understand what she's telling you, what she's saying. And then I know she'd never want to be blindsided.
Okay, tell us now how you really feel, Rebecca.
The new
How do you really want to be treated?
I put be transparent and able to communicate with understanding.
It goes back to that understanding, right? And transparency, with her transparency. You know, it's okay, like you talked about, like, you know, she might not trust me and Kevin yet, you know, she doesn't, but we're building that. We're cultivating relationships to see how we can work together. And it also goes to being strategic. So if, for example, if one of my board members is all about transportation, I might not go to Rebecca. Instead, I'm going to go to my people that know the most about transportation or, you know, have some information or can provide that point of view. I'm going to be strategic and go to these two people. You know, this might be curriculum people. These are my curriculum people, and if I have a curriculum question, I'm going to ask that question. Not putting you in this pigeonhole of that's your skill set, that's the only thing you can do. But being strategic when you are talking to your other two people, because you can only talk to two other people, because that's a walking quorum, and you want to make sure, and I always have to tell the boards, because I cannot assume that they know what that means. You have to say, hey, April, I want to talk to you about the agenda item on transportation. Have you talked to anybody yet? Actually, Esperanza, I have. I talked to Rebecca, and she had talked to Ernest, so I'm out. Okay. Thank you. It's so important to start
On
that,
agenda items.
you know, on agenda or anything that might come to the board.
Okay.
Or it might not be on the agenda yet, but it might come. Compensation. It might come to the board, so I would be very careful, right? Of course, some things are legal. Doesn't make them right, because you can legally do things, right? You have to think about the good of the board as well. Did everybody give me their note? Okay, ready for number 4? Okay, here we go. Last one. How do we want to treat each other when there is conflict? How do we want to treat each other when there is conflict? And then I have people ask me, well, what does that mean by conflict? Are you talking about conflict out there, conflict in here, or voting? How do we want to treat each other when there is conflict? We've seen a lot of conflict, right, with different issues that have come up. How do you want to treat each other? Think about times when there's been a lot of heartburn, when there's been a 4-3 vote, or a split vote, or 6-1 vote, whatever the case may be, but when there's been heartburn associated with it. Think about conflict, with public forum, with accountability. So many different ways to have conflict.
Thank you.
I have a water. Thank you.
Can't believe you're making me think. After
He's
all
the
day.
one. No, it was Kevin that said this 3 hours is going to be easy peasy. And it is.
It's a lot easier sitting in front of a computer and just watching the video for an hour.
Yeah.
You're making me work.
I told you we have a test.
We're digging into feelings and stuff.
That's right.
This is a board therapy. It's fun. I like it.
I love it.
I like it.
Now I can do this 8 hours.
The only thing when you're doing CPU, you got to just make sure that you get that little code that pops up on the screen so that you get your
So you can hurry.
And at the end of this, I will enter it for you. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
So we'll get it all entered.
Okay.
Do you have any of those classes when you go to like the conventions? Do you usually should have gotten your class? I've been all interested in ready
but
to
it's
go.
so short that it didn't.
Well, I know after the new superintendent comes on board, you guys will be doing maybe the, is it the Team of 8 training?
Definitely.
Or transitions training maybe?
There's different trainings. There is one, since TASB is your search firm, they do a transition. We can come in to do
Oh,
a
they already do
transitional
that.
piece.
Okay, they do that as part of the.
Well, one of us board consultants will come and do that piece.
I feel like
for
we
you.
need to go on
To
and
transition you. Well, request me and then I'll come.
Yes.
Because I love coming up here. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, who's going to start us off? Trey.
Okay.
I usually respect you. We need to treat each other with respect. And, we're talking about conflict, just to have a sense of thought and try to come up with this outcome for the board. As you mentioned a lot, and here lately, I'm new to the board once again, and there's been a lot that's gone on. Even since I've been here, there's been a lot that's gone on. Probably even
Never
more.
ending.
And it's never ending, So I don't talk to maybe everybody, but I do talk to April quite often. And there's sometimes, like I said, we don't maybe agree, but we figure it out and we do come up. Hey, you know what? That sounds better, and we try to come up with the best scenario. So, there's sometimes I get off the phone like, man, that wasn't right. They just tell me. She'll call me back tomorrow. She'll call me back tomorrow. And we'll talk about it again. Figure it out. Just some type of sense of thoughtfulness.
And one of the things that you said, Trey, was you mentioned we should have each other's back, right? And that's huge. And that, again, doesn't mean you have to agree with everything everybody says. It's okay to disagree. But again, respecting that body corporate. Once that vote is taken, you respect the body corporate and you don't bash each other out there, right? Because what does that show? It shows your community that division, right? And then they don't feel that trust, that confidence. It doesn't instill confidence in them when they're seeing that infighting. So it's so important, like you said, got each other's back.
And sometimes the community will exploit that division
Yes.
if they sense it.
They've tried, because you can ask them. They know that I go to every sporting event and whatever else. I know a lot of people. They've tried it with Jelchik, and I've told them, man, I don't know. He's actually pretty smart. And then they'll look at me like, "Are you serious right now?" Like, they've said a lot of different things.
You can't
When
spell.
It's not a good spell.
when they look at me though, they're like, well,
They're like, well, they done turned you against them.
yeah, exactly.
They
Some
done
of them
converted
do.
you.
Yeah.
Done converted
But it's like I
Trey.
told you, I can think for myself. I don't need to go off of just because you don't like them doesn't mean you're going to convince me of that. You better make it good.
And we're going to talk about that when we go to board roles and responsibilities, because that's a huge piece that board members, especially new board members or inexperienced board members, that they can fall into that trap, right? We all can. And so it's just important to keep that in mind. We're going to talk about that. So I'm definitely holding on to that. Kevin?
Back to the word respect again. Respect each other's views and opinions, and then have the philosophy of agreeing to disagree.
It's okay, right?
Yeah, and then be professional and be understanding of each other's feelings about the matters we're discussing.
Be professional.
Honesty. To trust each other enough to have a truthful conversation and try to see each other's side. Argue with a plan to resolve the issue and respect each other's opinions.
I like that.
I like the plan. Have a plan, right? Good.
Do not take it personal. Tomorrow is another day. Start fresh. Know how to move on and learn from it.
That's right. Don't take it personal. It's so funny. One of the boats that we had, that was on the pool. Remember that $5 million pool? Well, two of my best friends are on the board. We became best friends after they got on the board. And one of them abstained because she was on the board of that place. And one of them had switched her vote from no to yes. So because they put it back on the agenda 3 times, which legally you can do, not a good thing for the team. So one of my best friends, at the end of that meeting, and it was contentious, right? We had 30 people speaking about the pool, and you should do it, and you shouldn't do it, and this and that. And Esperanza, you hate kids because you're voting against it.
How do you see that board meetings? Where have you been?
Oh my goodness.
You've been there.
Start.
Yes,
Sounds familiar.
Well, who sent you?
exactly. I've been there, done that.
Did they tell you to watch the video before you get
Think this whole hour. What's going on?
Come on, you know a little too much, girl.
I've experienced it. And I've lived through it. But at the end of that meeting, even though she switched her vote, and I was like, what in the world, right? We went out for drinks afterwards. And that's it. It was done. We went out for drinks. We're best friends. And we moved on.
See, we don't have nowhere to do that, so we don't. We
can't go back there.
can't get over it like that.
Yes, it's like drive
I've
out.
known him too long. I'll fight
Oh
him.
my goodness. Hey, go have a Sonic drink, or no, you don't have Sonic, maybe, but Subway. Go have a slushy. But we did, because you can't take it personal. It's okay. You're my best friend, and we voted on the opposite side. Who cares? You thought you were doing the best. I thought I was doing the best. We articulated that. We represented our community. Now it's done. Right? Okay, who's next?
Ernest.
Okay, so I said first you want to put everything on the table and process it. You can't just listen to one side and make a decision. Treat each other with dignity and respect, and be professional about it.
Professional keeps coming up, right?
Okay, we need to have the mindset as we're still in this together, and we need to work together to come to a solution and maintain professionalism.
Because at the end of the day, we are in this together, right?
I put treat each other with language that is not aggressive, but inclusive. Treat each other with positive interactions and acknowledging what we do agree on. Acknowledge what we do agree on. And vowing to continue to work on what we don't agree on by showing grace and understanding.
Grace.
Even did both sides. Where's Ron? I feel like when Ron gets here, he needs to answer these for.
Yes. We're going to want to hear
from him.
We
Is
want
he
to hear
hard?
from Ron.
I'm going to Zoom
text
with
him.
him
Yes.
and get him to answer all this.
Yes.
But so important.
Gotcha. I'll take a
Continuing to work on what we don't agree on, but talking about the stuff we do agree on, because we are more alike than we are different, right? And it doesn't matter how you get to that end goal. That's something I had to learn as a leader, right? I had to evolve as a leader and not worry about, well, I need to be, I need everybody to acknowledge that it was my idea, right? Because as union president, you wanna make sure that everybody knows it was the union that got it done, right? You have to take credit because you want to grow your membership. So I had to change my mindset from that and say it doesn't matter whose idea or where it came from. It matters that we get to the end game, that you meet that end goal. So that's so important. Once you take that piece, oh man, you can breathe a lot easier when you're not worried about that piece, right? Like, I want to get credit. I want it to be my idea. I want people to vote with me. It's about that end goal. Who's next?
See?
Everybody got it? Woo! Okay.
So he's got an extra paper over there.
No restroom break yet. I have another slide. I have 2 more slides. Okay, sorry. It's a Mac, and it changed my font, so it messed up my words there. But consideration and utilizing social contracts. There's a couple of things. That accessibility. Making sure that it is accessible to the public. We have it on our website. We have it in our boardroom in a big poster. And we read it at every board meeting. Just like how you do the Pledge of Allegiance and your mission, we read it. And that helps so much during times of controversy, because before we started that meeting and had 50 people come yell at us, we read that social contract that talked about how we were going to behave when there's conflicts. That was one of the things in the social contract, right? So just getting that footing before you go into a meeting that could be controversial, that can have conflict.
So y'all read it out loud
Yes.
in open session?
Yes.
Okay.
And we posted it on our board wall, and it was on our PowerPoint that we showed up to the screen. It was live streamed, everything. And it was in our board packet. We are committed to it, right? So accessibility, effectiveness, having those hard conversations. April, this is what we voted on and we agreed, but you're not following it. Having that conversation. And it's just not up to Rebecca to have that conversation, but if Ernest is having an issue, having that conversation, talking about it. We voted on it. What's going on, Ernest? You're not following it. Do we need to revisit it as a team? Is it just you? Were you just off that night or what? Right? Having that conversation. And I have to call people out. I have to call people out and have those side conversations with
Well,
people.
we just have to hold each other accountable.
Exactly. And of course I didn't say it from the dais. Oh, Rebecca, you're not following the social contract. I would, when we had a break, hey Rebecca, what's going on? You were yelling at Ernest, and that's not appropriate. That goes against our social contract. I would have to have those conversations. Now, once I did have to say, remember the social contract board member? I did have to do that one time because they were really extreme.
So is your social contract, is that the norms that you talked about?
Yes, and I'm going to show you an example here.
Okay.
Collaboration. Everybody had their voice heard. everybody is valued except Ron. We haven't heard from him, but we do value him, and so I will Zoom with him and talk to him about his answers because I want to incorporate it in.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Now, I know, we're talking about the contract, our contracts and what we have to abide by. But then you've also got, your
Public
public
speakers.
as well, which in your public you have teachers and you have
Employees.
employees that work here. What about them? Because it can get ugly.
You have to lead by example.
Exactly.
And once you all lead by example, it trickles down. Legally, if you're talking about public forum, they can say whatever they want.
Even if they're employees,
Well,
They
no,
can say-
they're public forum if they sign up.
Yes.
But if they're just sitting in the audience, that doesn't pertain to them,
There's
does it?
rules. There's rules, right? I can do a whole public forum rule thing. So we're going to put a pin on it because I love talking about public forum. And I have had to facilitate some heated ones. So we'll talk about that at the end. Okay.
Ready on
This is an example of a social contract. So this is our social contract. And these are the 5 things that are our norms that we abide by. We say the board will serve as district ambassadors. That came out of this discussion like you all had. That came out of it. The board will be professional. The board will collaborate as a team and respect the body corporate. There it goes back to body corporate. The board will promote discussion and respect each other. Okay, let me tell you, I'm going to put, I need to say a little caveat here. This is our social contract from a year ago. This past year, I made a change in the social contract when we had our team building, and I said, we need to take out respect each other because we cannot force anybody to respect each other. So we changed it where it says promote discussion and respect other viewpoints or something general like that. Not respect each other because you cannot force me to respect Ron. You can't force me to respect April. I don't have to respect them. I have to be professional and treat them respectfully, right? And what does that look like? Being professional, listening and being open-minded. But you cannot force anybody to respect each other. So I will tell you that ours has changed because you review it every year. You review it and change it based on the dynamics of the group. So I love the one we have this year. It's so great. And then I love number 5. Assume positive and noble intentions. So instead of thinking, oh, there goes Kevin talking again, and he has his own agenda, and he's just bringing that up. Instead, assume noble and positive intentions. Kevin really cares about transportation. He really cares about the environment, so I know that's why he's bringing it forward, right? Instead of coming from a negative place and assuming, oh,
You don't know how
Here we
much
go
you
again. Like,
You don't know how much you just nailed it. Get out Palm Street.
nice. You see, it happens to all of us, Kevin. That's not the intent. And when we have that foundation of trust as a board, then I know that Cindy, she really appreciates the curriculum piece, right? And she has a lot of questions about that. She's not trying to show off. She's not trying to sell some program to us. She cares about curriculum, and she used to be a teacher, or whatever the case may be. Knowing that that intent is noble, right? Don't have to agree with you, but it's coming from a positive place.
So, as a board president, you recommend, like for our board president, to you said visit the social contract once a year, or once every time there's a board change, or
So once a year we'll do it because that'll be. We have our when are your elections?
May.
Okay, perfect. We have our elections in May, and then in August is when we revisit everything. We do our team building in August. We go over our goals, our mission, our vision, our social contract. And one of the other things is that we read our social contract out loud. So at every board meeting, remember I told you we read it out loud, but we rotate. It's just not the president reading it.
Okay.
Cindy,
That's good.
and then Ron, and then Ernest, and even those people you don't like, right? Those board members you didn't like, I would call on them. They had to. We're rotating it because everybody should take it to heart, right? And it's important. So that's a huge thing for us. We read it at every meeting. Now it's break time. Okay,
We have to get a break?
I'm going to give you 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yes.
5 minutes because I know y'all want to get out of here early too. So I'm trying.
Ron said he'd be here in 20 minutes.
Okay.
As soon as he gets here, I'll be like, I need you to answer 4 questions. I need to know.
We need to know what you did.
Yes.
I need to know.
We'll keep
how
them
many
after
questions.
class
There you go.
and give them the whole thing.
I'm
And
gonna be like, you can't leave until you answer these 4 questions.
so I'm putting the
How
timer.
many? 20 minutes?
5 minutes, unless you want to stay till 9. No. We gotta leave early. We gotta keep on it.
I'm the worst at cleaning the glasses. I cannot.
Mine gets so dirty so fast.
God, me too.
I'm constantly cleaning them.
What was it?
But all this oil and sweat. and everything.
Where?
I really wanted more nachos.
On that note, I'm gonna run to the ladies' room.
Can we get another break later? We'll get some.
Ernest, what are you eating over there?
What?
What are you eating over there?
Cherry pie.
Oh.
Oh, cherry cobbler.
Sounds good.
I know. Let me post our board training so they'll know we're doing training.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, better get some cherry cobbler.
Oh, that looks good, but I better not.
Okay, I'll have yours.
Okay, you can have my slice.
So you buying a gift for today?
Strawberry.
Cindy, it was her birthday today. And I am last minute on absolutely everything. You can't say that out loud. I was supposed to be at the post office. Oh, okay. Dang it, Ernest.
I always gotta mess everything up.
No, Jesus. Telling on me.
Okay, I got some mints and some, trying to give all my
Food away.
All your duties.
So, like tomorrow, y'all, you don't have to come back tomorrow, do you?
No, but I'm gonna, because teachers are having to work, do virtual work from home, I'm gonna make my people work from So we're gonna do virtual meetings tomorrow.
Okay.
M&M's, anybody?
FaceTime you all day.
Good.
We should
Strawberry
virtual
cobbler.
all of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some cobbler. But here's some candy if anybody wants.
Are you sure?
Here's some more.
Y'all are off tomorrow?
Yeah, and these are mints. Mints goodies.
April
Chocolate.
come in on Friday.
Really?
Everybody
By
else,
yourself,
everybody else is off on Friday.
No.
And April volunteered to come in and answer the phone.
Aren't you so
I thought it
nice?
was really nice.
No, probably not.
Well, she might well in. She didn't get to go shopping this afternoon, so.
We will probably be the only ones in the courthouse on Friday.
Really?
Well, probably tomorrow after lunch. Everyone else will get to go home, but we have to stay.
What's the city doing, Ernest?
We're working till Friday.
Till Friday?
Are y'all Monday?
For that.
Off Monday.
So you work Friday too? No, Cindy?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How about you guys?
We're off
I'm
Friday.
just fine with
Dang.
Friday and
I know.
Monday.
Do you have any openings?
When are you off? Are you off Friday and Monday, Rebecca? I'm not volunteering to answer the phone.
You can get them rolled over to your phone, you know that, right? And you can work from home.
That's what I was trying to tell him.
Can we do that? Can we forward the calls to your house?
Absolutely. Might not answer, but
No wonder she said absolutely. it'll say, please leave me a text.
Text me.
My daughter turns 26 tomorrow.
Oh,
Somebody said that their doctor called them in Lubbock and said, you better come in today because we're not opening the offices tomorrow. So I think it was going to get real cold.
Any snow or just cold?
Just real cold, like 7 degrees or something like that.
7 degrees.
Yeah, and
Are you staying nearby tonight?
Yes, I am, because it's 6 hours to get back home. So I am
where are you from? Austin?
Austin.
Oh,
It's
Austin.
actually an hour south of Austin.
Oh, wow.
Not that far.
Rebecca, I feel like we need to go on the board. What is it, the Hispanic?
You never call me Saturday.
But Kevin and Ron are Mexican, so they can go with us.
I said, did you hear what I said? You never call me Saturday.
We didn't even do it Saturday, and
Well,
I
you
was
could've called
waiting.
and told
No,
me.
I was waiting for you because
We're
I
waiting
didn't
for
want to like
Ernest.
hug you, and I told her because I told Aunt Lethea that's what we were gonna do. She's like, I was like, well, I'm gonna wait till to call her because I don't know if she's gonna want to, and so I was like, I was gonna wait till she called me, and then I was like, no. So she was like, she calls like, no, I
You
guess
are
I just
gonna
won't do
talk
it.
about
Well, y'all said y'all were.
I'm going to talk about all kinds of things.
You need to message me because I tell you once, and I don't want to.
I'm going to entertain questions at the end. Specific
time
time
at the
high.
I know. I need to next time. I am. I would just. I feel like
Okay,
staying
I can
home.
talk about that. I love public forum.
Oh yes.
Okay, we ready?
Ready on that one.
Okay, time to get you out of here early. Okay, the school board's authority. This is something else that sometimes we have a hard time wrapping our mind around. Okay, who would like to read this for me? Okay?
Trustees as a body.
nobody gets.
Trustees as a body.
Hey, you're young. You should have better eyes than me. As a body corporate,
Have the exclusive power and duty to govern and oversee the management of the public schools of the district.
oh,
That's why he squinted.
I know, and he's all young. Okay, so the body corporate, the trustees as a body corporate have the exclusive power and duty to govern and oversee the management of the public schools of the district. What does that mean? Who can tell me what that means?
We have power
How? How do you have power?
with our voice and our decision.
Do you individually have power?
No.
No,
As a team.
the body.
We
As
have
a team, as a body corporate. Because you know what? It takes 4 of you to get anything done.
Right?
So as an individual, you cannot, I can't promise that that coach is going to get fired. I can't promise that we're going to hire that superintendent. It takes at least 4 people. So the body corporate has the power, not as an individual.
You have that power when you're brand new. You think you can.
You think you have all kinds of power because you campaign and you campaign and say, I'm going to get that football coach out. I'm going to fire that teacher. I'm going to do this program. Because you don't know any better.
Well,
Right?
the community doesn't know either. They'll say, how come y'all don't do this?
The community doesn't know,
No.
and people that are running usually don't know, and even as a new board member, you still don't get it sometimes. And, you know, I've had an opponent every single time, right? And one of the things that they campaigned on was on state issues. And I'm like, okay, we have nothing to do with state-related partisan things. So people don't understand what they're even running for, right? And it is our job and responsibility to educate our community. It's actually one of the 5 things that we're responsible for, that we need to educate our community on board roles and responsibilities. We need to inform them of what that looks like. Okay? Because the board is a body corporate, members can perform no valid act except as a body at meetings properly convened and conducted. What does that mean?
I mean, what?
The board is a body corporate, can
Like
only
one person
perform.
just can't. You can't do anything as one. You can't do it.
Or even as three,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Let's go to the Sonic and let's plan this all out. We're going to fire this person. Right? You have no power until you are in a properly convened meeting and making a decision there. That is the only place a decision can be made, right? You can discuss it with two other people, okay?
No, I meant like together. All of
Yes,
us in the same
together,
room.
your body corporate. Okay, so now we're going to talk about govern and oversee management. What is the school board? What are they responsible for? What is the what they're responsible for?
Policy and procedures. Well,
Policy?
everything though, like because it affects your community. It affects everything. Every decision we make, even if it's
But be more
policy.
specific. Think overarching. Policy,
So your policy affects the children, affects our community, and sets a standard.
okay, policy. Just say policy.
Okay, policy.
Policy. Yes, there's that
Yeah.
trickles down to our kids. But you're responsible for policy. What else are you responsible for? What do you do that you have to do every single year? You have to vote on it.
Money.
Yeah.
Your budget.
Okay.
Budget. What else? Every year you should be looking at what?
Salaries?
Okay. Goals.
Goals.
Right? Your goals. Yes, of course. And your compensation is going to be in your budget. So compensation, you're in charge of that, right? Anything else that you remember?
Every year, I mean, superintendent.
Superintendent, well, that's-
Or yeah.
Oh, that superintendent evaluation,
Contract,
right?
yeah.
Contracts.
Okay. Anything else you can think of?
Ron, we have 4 questions
Hello.
you're going to need to answer back to back because we need to know where you stand on this, sir. Okay.
All right, actually, Kevin
You
said
okay?
you're going to stay after class.
Oh, well, you're staying after class. We're waiting for the answers.
Extra attendance.
Hi, Ron.
Hello.
I'm Esperanza
Okay, I'm on.
with TASB. Okay, so let's look at what a school board is responsible for. Okay? You said community. So the goals, you are responsible for the goals. You vote on the goals of the district on an annual basis. Sometimes those goals might carry over, and it might be 3 years of the same goal. That's okay. Usually takes 3 to 5 years to accomplish those goals. But you have to review your goals and have that discussion. So you're responsible for voting on that. You are absolutely in charge of policy. You have policy you have to adopt. Now, there's policy from TASB that is state mandated. You can't change it. But you also have control of your local policy. So you can make policy as well. For example, since I was union president, it was a huge thing for me to create employee-friendly policy in our district. And so we've created all this employee-friendly policy with incentives, with leave, and so on. And so that is called Local Policy X. So on your policy, you will see Policy A, Policy B. X is anything that just pertains to your district only. So there are some things that you can do for your district only, right? But of course, you have to check with your lawyer, make sure that it's all legal. But that's what we did. So of course, you're responsible for the superintendent, hiring your interim superintendent, hiring your new superintendent, and evaluating that superintendent, right? That's a huge responsibility.
So, for the evaluation of the superintendent, would the board president, who could they reach out to at TASB that would help them with the evaluation process? Oh, there you go.
I love doing superintendent evaluation. My goodness.
I will give you her phone number.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, it is so much fun.
And it didn't have to just be done once a year, right? We can do a
Oh, you have
quarterly-
formative and summative, and most people don't know that,
Yes.
that you should be doing.
If we could do, I read where you could do several.
Yes, that's best practice, is to have those quarterly formative evaluations. And what does that look like? Most people don't know what that looks like, Trey. So we're training our board members more and more. We just came out with a new superintendent evaluation course online to go over that whole evaluation process. What does it look like? And then I go over the logistics of it. Because, you know, you can talk about progress monitoring and evaluating, but I talk about the logistics. What does it look like? What should you do at a formative versus a summative?
And you said that's online?
No, that's me. That part of me.
No, but
But the other one
link.
is, and I can send you that
Yes,
link.
please.
Yes, I'll send the link
Okay.
to that.
Perfect.
So superintendent evaluations, huge. Budget and tax rate. You set the tax rate. Not only do you adopt that budget, right, and go through the budget process, you adopt a tax rate every year. And tax rate is so confusing because you have to read what is mandated by the state of Texas. That's very misleading. That says, like, you're going to raise this, but really you're dropping it sometimes, but you still have to read that sentence.
What power does the school board have to see everything in the budget? Like if we feel we're being stonewalled and not given stuff, just saying this is what the budget is, this is what the rate, this is, and we ask for it and we're told to, you got to submit a formal
21-day
request. Yeah.
request.
Open records request?
Yeah. And things are pushed through, and they would come down to the deadline. Well, I mean, it kind of puts us at a bind where either we approve it and the employees get paid, and school goes on, or not, or we lock everything up.
So you outline a process of what your budget's going to look like that you all agree on, right? So you talk about the process. We, for example, you weren't here, so you don't know. I'm a sitting board member, third term, all that stuff, right? So I know I'm president, vice president, secretary. So we talked about our process, what that was going to look like for budget. We all agreed, okay, we're going to have 3 workshops plus our regularly scheduled meetings where we talk about the budget as well. And then we're going to have a special meeting when we vote on the budget. So we decided on that. We had a calendar for the whole semester of all our budget.
And y'all decided that with your superintendent.
Always.
When is the soonest you can start doing that? Because usually us, it was like a month or two before, and there was no time.
We do it in February. We start in February. February 6th is our first meeting. But I'm going to tell you the caveat. This year is a year that we have a legislative session. That throws everything off because they're going to throw stuff at us on stuff you have to fund, or they'll have a special session. That really hurt us 2 years ago with our budget process. So before, where we started in January, February with our budget process, which on a regular year without the legislation in session, you can do. But when you have the legislation in session, it is hard to do because they're still talking about it. They're still talking about safety and security, and they're going to mandate this, and they're still arguing about it, and they're not talking about the funding source. So that pushes your budget off. So we're having our preliminary budget discussion on February 6th to kind of set the priorities. And districts do it different, but we set our priorities of what we want our money to go to. 86% goes to personnel, right? That's something you can't help. That's where it goes. So we outline what our priorities are. Our priorities are, for example, safety and security, is compensation. So those are the 2 things we are not going to negotiate. We have to do that. So it's a process, very detailed, and I can definitely talk some more about that. But we'll go through this, and at the end, I will stay to answer all the questions. Okay. The superintendent is the how. So as board members, you're the what, right? You are the big overarching things. You know how they always say the 30,000 foot view, right? Is where you should be. So you got to be careful when it comes to budget of not to micromanage that, right? So you have to have a CFO that you trust. You have audits every year. And so our audits are perfect. 99% perfect. We have, a great rating, so we know we're doing things right. So you do have trust in your CFO and your superintendent. So you have to kind of balance all that. I will preface that. So what does the superintendent do? There's a how. What is this about? What's the how?
How he comes to the board with what we need, together.
Okay, bringing information. What else?
How to be transparent with us.
How to be transparent, not only with you, but with the community, right? Taxpayers. What
How
else?
the funding's going to be spent, the tax rate's going to, the money's supposed to come in is going to be spent, and where and how.
Okay, so telling you how they're going to spend the money. What's the plan, right? How they're going to spend that money.
Being an open book, because it's just my opinion as one board member, but it is a big difference between this lady right here and what we've had in the past. We have had, to me, my opinion, we have had more information handed to us and given to us and kept us updated on stuff in the past 2 months than I think, and I've just been on the board since May, than I think this board's probably had in the past 6 years.
Oh, for sure. From last year, I know that, like, as a new board member, or new-ish, there's things that I didn't know that I should be knowing. Now that, Ms. Benavides is here, I'm like, oh, see that last year? Oh, so, there's sometimes...
Or before you were told, I can't do your job, I can't be the board member and do your job for you.
Yes.
Right.
Or told, that's my job, not yours. I do.
Yes.
So
I mean, it is, and that's what it all boils down to. When you don't
I
have
feel sorry.
a superintendent and a CFO that you can trust,
Yes.
I mean, it really does. It's just us
Jay
A2.
and
If we
I.
can't trust each other, it does, and that was
So trust is the most important
yes,
thing.
very.
And having that confidence, right? That you have a competent superintendent, you have a competent CFO, and that's an important piece. So you can be able to trust that things are happening, right? So there's a fine balance. I will say there's a balance between micromanaging and doing your job as a board member. Due diligence, right? You weren't here for this, but I came from a toxic board. We turned it around and became an honor board, right? So been through it, done that. Didn't have trust, didn't have confidence, all these shell games, and then to complete transparency, where everything is going the way it should be going. So the superintendent comes up with the plans. It's not Trey's plan. The superintendent comes up with a plan. So who is your educational expert here? Your superintendent. So I was telling them, I was a teacher, I was union president at the district that I served. However, I still defer to my superintendent, who is the educational expert, who's been a superintendent for 20 plus years in education for 30, whatever. Doesn't mean that my opinion is not important or that I don't bring this perspective that maybe they overlooked before. We all add that value from whatever experiences we have. So that's not what I'm saying. However, the superintendent makes the plan, does the systems, checks on procedures, making sure that's all in place for you to be an effective district. So have you ever thought about, yes, and the superintendent will take my feedback. Doesn't mean they're going to put my plan in action, right? Because that might be great, Ron, but there's so many other components that you don't know about. And that's usually what happens. Or we can brainstorm together, and feedback is always good. But when you start mandating, Superintendent April, you need to follow my plan because I know. That's when things go sideways, and it does happen. We have over 1,000 districts in our state, and it does happen. And I see it way too much. And I've been there. I've done it. Monitoring system. Yes, ma'am.
And I was going to say, and that may be why the average years of experience for a superintendent is 3 years in a district now. That's about the average years that a superintendent will stay in a district. And it all has to do with the board relationship. And
So
so,
important.
it is really important, yeah.
It used to be a lot longer,
Yeah.
but now we're seeing a shortage in superintendents as well.
Right.
Because they are having a lot more micromanagement happening, right? And they're not getting to do their job because it should be my way because I'm smarter, right? So they monitor the system and they make the adjustments. So if there's something happening in transportation and safety and security and curriculum, they should be that pulse, right? And making sure to make the adjustments. Now, that doesn't mean if there's a district-wide issue and the superintendent is not changing things, having a discussion, right? I can have a one-to-one. Superintendent, this district-wide issue keeps coming up. I just want to bring it to your attention. What is your plan moving forward, or can you report out to the board, or whatever, right? Having that discussion, but not blindsiding, because blindsiding never helps a team work cohesively. So, Superintendent Rebecca, tell me right now what your plan is for bilingual. At a board meeting. That's not the best approach, right? While it's legal, doesn't make it right for your team. So making those adjustments as needed is important. Now, where is there overlap? Right here. There is some overlap. And that's where things get a little bit fuzzy for us, right? So, together, we evaluate the goals. Superintendent and the board. We evaluate the goals. Because when you set those goals, right, your superintendent will say, for example, I'm going to give you an example. If your goal is academics and your goal is to increase the master's level by 3%, 3% is your evidence of attainment. That is how you're going to show that you got to your goal. So how are you going to show me you got to your goal? Well, superintendent, you said 3%. So when it comes to evaluation time, April, I don't want to rate exceeds expectations, even though they did 5% instead of 3% across the board. So they did exceed what they said, right? But some board members are like, well, nobody exceeds expectations. So they're not looking at data, right? You need to look at that data, which is your evidence of attainment when you're looking at goals. So you evaluate goals, you evaluate policy. Your superintendent will bring you recommendations for local policy, or sometimes you might have a policy that has A and B, different versions of it, that comes through TASB. Evaluate plans. What is our plan? Oh, people want to have IB programs. They want a magnet program for CTE. What is the plan for the future? How are we going to grow our district, right? So, talking about and having that discussion, well, what is the will of the board? Is our will to make more magnet programs or create a magnet school? I need to have some direction, and then they plan it out what that looks like, right? So here's our overarching plan. We want, CTE is important, and we want to make sure that it's valued. Oh, here's the plan to show that. We're going to create, CTE program, a CTE magnet school. It's an example. And of course, evaluating that superintendent with your formative and summative evaluations. Okay, scenarios. Are you ready? I'm going to give you a scenario. You are going to tell me if it's governance, which means it's your responsibility as a board member, or it's management. It's the superintendent's job. Okay, a board member calls the superintendent and says, my neighbor just told me that her child's schedule is messed up and the counselor has not responded to her. I need this issue fixed.
Management.
What? You don't take those? You don't try to solve everything? For your community members? When they come up to you at
Church.
You don't have an HEB here.
At
church, at Subway, at Sissy's, or anything, you don't solve
I think
it?
if it becomes an
Chain
issue
of
where there's
command.
like 4 or 5 that reach out to you and there's this same problem with the schedule messed up, then you probably can have your discussion with your soup or the board and y'all bring it to just as, okay, what's the whole story on this thing? Because there's always more to the story.
Well, it's a discussion, but you can't
Yeah.
fix it.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying. And either they may not even be aware of it, that person's struggling on that campus.
Yes. So, chain of command. Goes back to chain of command. So, if somebody tells you at Sissy's, hey, I'm having this problem, have you contacted, okay, you already contacted the counselor because you said that. Contact the principal. That's the next person in the chain of command. Because if you try to solve the problem or circumvent the whole thing, right? Then what is it showing? That you don't have confidence in your staff to solve that problem. And I don't know about you, but since I was a teacher, I wouldn't want anybody to go report me to the principal saying I'm not doing my job when they have never even told me that I did something wrong, right? So having that professionalism, making sure to make that distinction. Ernest, I hear you. I know you're upset that the counselor hasn't contacted you back. It would frustrate me too, but have you contacted the principal? I'm sure she's being inundated. Contact the principal and see how they can help. Because it is not our job. And it is not our job to have a board discussion about the counselor not calling back or the counselor messing something up. That's not a board agenda item to discuss. But Ron, you're right. If you keep hearing over and over, there's this situation, I've referred them to the principal. Heads up, superintendent, I have referred 5 people already to the principal. I just want you to know, here's the information. I told them to go to the principal, and I'm out.
That's me. I'm not calling Dahlia. Grr. Guess what?
Yes.
They're going to Mr. Jasper, but if they don't, just in case.
and you're out of that, right? Because that is not our role. Now, when we ran because we want to help. We want to make a change. We want things to be better. It's very hard to get out of that mentality because that's our nature. We want to help and we want to fix. But that's when we get into trouble and deviate from our true roles and responsibilities. And so it's important to make that distinction. And so that's why it's important to look at different scenarios in real life, because this is a real life issue, right? It's happened at other districts, it's happened to me, and I even have board members that will try to do this, and I have to say, hold up, April. Well, you did what? Yeah, no, you can't do that. Not individual problems. District-wide, address it with your superintendent, heads up. But my friend and my friend and my friend and that individual, no.
And the two things happen is the more you intervene for people, the more people come to you because they talk in the community. Well, girl, I went to so-and-so and they took care of the problem for me, or they made a phone call for me. So you end up making more people kind of attract to you. That's one thing. The second is it does affect the relationship that you have with your superintendent. Because then when they start seeing that phone ringing with your name on it,
Something's going on.
you go, okay, because they know you're fixing to ask them to solve another problem for you.
On top of their 10.
On top of the other 10 million problems we have in curriculum and kids and, teachers and everything else that we have going. So we understand as superintendents that to everybody's problem, their problem is the most important one, right? But to a superintendent, we're looking at it from a big picture, in terms of trying to solve big problems that we have. And so, not that problem is not important, but like she said, there's a chain of command to take care of some of those things. And what you don't want to become is a conduit for people to start using you as a, you know what I'm saying, as a device.
That's why we have to tell the community, you've got to take the initiative because you can't come to me until you've already done what you need to. Because some of them don't even want to call. They'd rather you call.
Yeah, they want you to be the bad guy, not them, and
They say,
so.
I didn't tell Rebecca that.
Yeah.
But it feels good when you have a superintendent that you trust and you know that no matter what, because this is our community and we are elected by the people, so it's hard to be like, don't talk to me, don't look at me. I still want to hear your concern, but it feels good when I say, follow your chain of command. If all else fails, if that doesn't work, go talk to Miss Benavides. I know I have all the faith in her that she'll handle it. And but genuinely know that it's like,
Or she'll lead you to
it's
the
going to
right.
be handled. Whatever.
Definitely.
whichever-
And having
whatever
that
it
confidence in your administration to handle it is so important because I didn't have that confidence before. So
Yes.
I knew it wasn't going to be
See
handled.
both sides, yes.
But it's important. We're never going to, one of our jobs is to listen to our community. So I can listen to Ernest, my community member, and tell you about the chain of command, empathize, send you to the right person, and, give that heads up to the superintendent because that's our job is to do that. Our job is not to solve problems for employees or for, students or anything like that, for individual people. Now, if there's this huge district-wide issue, we had a district-wide issue with stipends for speech pathologists, right? And so they came to speak at a public forum. Okay, well, they spoke at a public forum, and it was a district-wide issue, so we did have a conversation about that, right? We have some issues with stipends that need to be remedied, but not, this speech pathologist needs this much money. Don't go to that level, right? But having that conversation.
Now, is there at any time that a superintendent can tell anybody you don't speak to a board member?
Absolutely not. It is in policy that anybody has the right to speak to a board member, especially employees. So I make sure, I was union president, so it's huge for me. I would always post it on my Facebook and everything. This is the policy. You can absolutely speak to any board member. However, don't come over here expecting me to fix it. You can speak to me, and I will refer you, hey, have you even brought it up to your principal that, you disagree with her T-test? Have you even brought it up, And usually, no, I don't want to. I don't want to be retaliated against. And then it's like, I can't speak for you, And as union president, I knew that they had to have skin in the game, right? Because if they don't say something, then I'm not showing them how to be empowered and how to deal with issues. I am instead letting them use me, right? And that's not a good way to empower people. Part of our responsibility as a board member is to empower and engage your community and show them how to navigate that system, right? And not spoon feed everybody. Yes, you have a question? Ron?
No, I didn't scratch it.
Okay.
Well, and also the community has a right to come to any board member.
Yes, they
with
definitely
their
can.
questions.
I will preface this. There's always a little caveat. For example, special ed is the only thing we can be sued for, usually. Special education, right? So be very careful when a special education parent wants to communicate with you, because usually there might be a lawsuit happening on the back end that you don't know about yet. So be very careful with grievances and legal issues like that.
Right, grievances or employees that we have been put on leave, or and if you all of a sudden have an employee that starts reaching out to you, more than once or twice, or he reached out, more than usual. Typically it's just courteous to call the superintendent and say, hey, just let me know this employee has reached out to me. I tell my employees, if you're starting to reach out to a board member more than a couple of times, it's courteous to let me know that you're reaching out to them. Just because otherwise it looks like there's something going on in the background that, I'm not aware of. And so it's just kosher that we keep each other on board. Just like if someone's reaching out to me repeatedly about a board member, then I'm going to let you all know, just as a courtesy. So just so that you guys know that I'm not going to share the conversation, but I'm just going to let you know so-and-so has reached out, times, just to let you know that I'm referring them back to you or whatever the case might be.
And the reason I ask is because that's what had been told to us, that we don't need, or not to have the community, if they have any question, to call the superintendent, or even from the employees, that they are not allowed to talk. They do not come to the board.
Yeah, so that's a falsehood, but it's always about the chain of command.
Yes.
Right? But I always clear up, and our employees know that they can come speak to us, and our superintendent is amazing about conveying that. But I always tell people, because this just happened last week, I had a teacher calling me and saying, all the teachers are upset, they don't like this principal, whatever. Have you reported that to your deputy academic officer? Oh, no. So you want to come speak at a board meeting about this, but you haven't talked to your deputy academic officer. You haven't brought it up to the superintendent or the principal, and you want to now make it public?
Well, I can tell you under the previous administration, going back several years, even now, if you brought it to them and they didn't like it, it was squashed and you were put on the hit list. If they loved you, it was pressed forward and pushed through and shoved down the throats, and that's the way that was going to be done.
Sure, and we
So-
experienced
So,
that.
what do you do? I mean, you've got to have actually
You
the
can't
trust.
prove
You
it,
got to have
but
the
you know
trust.
that's what's happening.
It is
But that's
so
where you need a
hard.
strong board to stand up and say, enough.
Well, and that's where the evaluation process comes in of the board, of
Yeah.
the superintendent, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a
because-
mindset and philosophy as well.
Yeah.
Because you have a different superintendent now, right? So that was the
Oh,
past.
yes.
And so when you get your new superintendent,
Oh, yeah.
that has to be part of when you're interviewing
Oh,
them.
the discussion.
This is our mindset. This is our philosophy. And so we made that really clear when we hired our new superintendent. We want to be this, an employee-friendly organization. We don't want retaliation. We don't want scapegoating. This is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like. We've had it, and we want none of it. And so we had to find the right fit for us. That was it. And you have to get, going through hiring a superintendent, man, you have to really dig
I feel sorry
deep.
for the applicants after our ordeal. I
Me
do.
Yeah, and that's
I
what I'm
do.
saying.
I
I
mean,
think
to know.
I think
'cause I
now
want-
going through it, we know
That's
we're going
okay.
with open eyes.
answered. I mean, they may like
That
other
is
teachers.
okay, because you're going to find a worthwhile superintendent that understands. We thought we weren't going to get a superintendent because of all the drama that was in the social, not only social media, but the newspaper and such. We're like, nobody's going to
Well,
want
that's
to
what
work for
we've
us.
been told.
Yes.
And during all the process, we were told
Yes.
nobody's going to work for this district. Nobody wants to.
Exactly.
And we were
But
told
you
by the
know
whole.
what? You do have
Yes, they do.
applicants, and you have to
Oh, yeah.
cut through the stuff and get to one of quality. And we did. And man, we are so good because of the superintendent we hired and him having that mindset and philosophy. And not just what looks good on paper. I can talk about superintendent evaluation. I mean, interviewing for a super. You had a question,
I
Trent?
mean, how do you maintain that balance? Like, getting to know Dahlia, and I'd heard good stuff, from my mom who works for the school district for 40 plus years. My mom knew who she was and said good things, whatever. So a lot of other people, Dahlia's, I like the way she is. She's strong. She's a strong woman. But she doesn't, she'll listen to you. How do we create that balance to where we can do that with the next person, but also let them know we're not trying to micromanage you. We just
We're just a little gunshot. I mean, or no, we've been
Well,
bit.
hold up here
I mean,
with
that's
the
what I'm saying.
gun.
You've been bit, so you're real. You're like,
yeah. We don't want to scare you off.
No.
We're not trying to
No,
do your
that's right,
job.
Don't mind us.
Just
what is the
And,
balancing
and
act?
it's okay to say that. We said we have PTSD.
Yes, that's
We
exactly.
have PTSD, and we are terrified of this next step because, we heard nobody wants to come work for you all because you all micromanage and you all do this and that. Well, we don't have to micromanage if we have a competent person, right?
Right.
Well, I told them, I said,
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, before this all went on, I don't want a Trump to the right cult, and I don't want a Pelosi to the left cult. I don't want either one of those. I want no part in a cult and
The extremes.
a group extreme. I
Yeah.
want in the middle where we can sit and tell me what's going on.
yeah.
And you probably can, at least I can be common sense of, that's why we're doing that. Not do your job or I can't do your job for it. I mean, so
I think it's like what
Yeah.
you said it the other day about the coaches at the board meeting. You said about like the longevity of keeping people. Like that's what I want. I want to keep somebody.
Yeah, because you have a 25%
So
turnover.
that's what I'm saying about the balance. Like, how do we know? Like, hey, we
What was
we coming
what
off
was
too
it?
strong? Or
if you
They-
look at
they
any
want to work.
successful
It's not
program,
like
there's
really-
most likely longevity, stability.
yeah.
I mean,
But you know what? At the end of the day, actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
And so what we did as a board, we decided we wanted to go see this person at their current district, right? After we narrowed it down to the last two. We said, we want to go and go talk to teachers, go to your district and talk to whoever we want. Absolutely. Come on in.
I just can't believe that.
So we went to go talk to teachers. We went to talk to principals, and they're like, "We hate you all because you're taking them from us."
So, but, I mean, like the schools are welcoming. I mean,
Well, if we
Yeah,
don't
no,
have
they
to-
were sweet.
I
They
know
were
that, but I mean,
sweet.
I think it'd
They say
be
that, we'll
odd
believe them,
because
but if they tell us,
either A, they
"Oh, yeah,
wanted,
he
I mean,
says-"
he's
Okay,
looking for a
no,
reason.
Oh
she's looking for a
no,
reason.
teachers are honest. They will tell you.
You
Oh,
watch that
man.
body language and I'll ask.
Have luck, good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that. And people were honest, but we called all these teachers, union leaders, all these people, and they're like, "Wow, you are stealing him from us, and we hate you all, but man, you're not going to get anybody better than that because he's top notch, right?" And that was really cool to be in that position.
And let me just say this, a competent superintendent is not going to be offended by your questions
Nope.
or by your reaction or by your comments, okay? Or not be, they're not going to be offended or take offense or be, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't take it personal whenever we have conversations, and most of the time you guys may not even know that I disagree with some of you sometimes because I don't tell y'all. Because I just, you know, there's times where I agree with y'all most of the time, and times when I don't. But I don't get offended by it, and I don't. It doesn't affect my relationship with you because there's work to be done. So we just go on.
And
So
you know they have noble and positive intentions.
Exactly.
That's what it boils down
Down
to.
to.
And not
Because
only
she
that,
knows that.
Your
she'll
heart's in the
either
right
make us
place.
Or she'll tell us why it is, and we're like, oh,
That's-
we didn't
yep.
see it that way, and
That's-
that's good because we don't.
Or we
always
don't know that
everything.
one or two other details.
Yep.
She says, well, okay, here's some other things to this. You're like, okay, now that makes a difference. I mean, just
Definitely.
little stuff.
Well, you always have to take things with a grain of salt. As union president, I wanted to believe all the employees of all the things they said.
Yeah.
But I knew, gotta take it with a grain of salt. Just like when you hear stuff in the community, they're not telling you every
No.
side. There's three sides to every story. And yes, you want to be empathetic. Doesn't mean they're going to tell you everything. And it doesn't mean your administration is telling you everything either. So you take this, you take that, and then you come up with your own conclusion, if you will. But again, following that chain of command, but having that trust in your superintendent is huge. Because before, when I didn't, it was the worst feeling, right? Knowing, yeah, that's probably happening. Yeah, I believe that, But with this superintendent, I'm like, absolutely not. I know the ethics of this superintendent, the mindset and philosophy, and how closely we all work together, and how we have moved from toxic, dysfunctional to awesome, right?
and y'all have the capability of doing that. Honestly, you
Well,
do.
and
Heck yeah, because
it
your
does make a
intent.
big difference because me being a president when I had to deal with our last superintendent, you have no idea how I dreaded having to come to a board meeting or even to meet with him. It just was like, oh lordy, like I cannot do this, but
Yeah.
it's not easy.
It's
so
very taxing. It's very heavy.
It
very,
is.
very heavy. And I know. I mean, it was so bad. But it can change.
Yes.
That's the cool part. And I have never been happier, ever, ever, ever. In our superintendent's
that's how we're
best.
gonna be with her.
Yes.
After it's all
You're gonna be like, yay!
we're relieved.
Are we going to
Okay.
go to her school and take her to play?
Oh, he'll never come. Never. He pinky promised us
Oh.
already, and we have renewed his contract to the utmost that we can, which is 5 years. But he's going to retire with us. So.
We'll see that.
Oh, he will.
Okay, scenario number 2.
Scenario number 2.
Board
Oh, I'm
members.
sorry, Kevin.
Let me ask this.
Yes.
Talking about your superintendent.
Yes.
Does this individual form committees involving teachers and employees of the district to get their input in on whether it be curriculum or this or that? I mean,
Absolutely.
Even in hiring on a principal or
And that is a question that the board can ask. And what is the will of the board? The will of the board can form committees and appoint people to committees.
But does your superintendent
Allow it.
Take their
well,
recommendation.
does he take the recommendations or does he waste their time?
Oh, he's amazing. So he meets with our union and our association and everything in between board meetings, right? So we have a board workshop where we discuss this. He meets with them in between, finds out what they're thinking, their recommendations, is there any issues, and then comes back and reports to us at our action meeting and reports if he had not already talked to him the month before, which it will be in our transmittal sheet that he spoke to the association, right? And this is their recommendation. He includes them in there. So yes, and sometimes he says, you know what?
So you-
I messed up. and I messed up on these stipends. The association brought it to me, and this is how I'm trying to fix it. So,
So we've seen just the opposite.
yes,
I mean, to me,
I've seen it too.
To me, the committees that he's pulled together, it's
Yes.
a waste of their time. Why ask
Yes.
them if you're just going to do what you want?
Do what you want. Yeah.
And back then, my question would be, who's on the committee,
Looks like
Who
that
did you
budget-
appoint
your
to the
budget work
committee?
sessions, too.
right? Because it's all about who you appointed to the committee under different regime.
Can we have a say so? I mean, like, when he does put the committee together, committee, will we have our input on who we think?
You should have something in policy about committees, where you can, like rezoning committee, right? Name, school naming committee, zoning committees. There's so many committees that the board appoints to that you have that ability. You have to look at your policy to see what you have in there, and you can always change policy too, but it's in there. Okay, scenario number 2, because I'm trying to look at the time. A board member is on his child's campus and sees that the doors are being propped open. He immediately calls the superintendent to report. So is that a governance, or should that be, do I go to the superintendent to report this? Am I there as a parent or as a board member?
There's both.
Oh,
I'm there.
Well,
Well,
No, I'll be a
I would
board
go to
member.
the principal.
My first action would be to get that, close the door.
Yeah, I'd probably close the door.
Yes.
And then
And
tell
then,
the principal.
and then the
it's
issues,
more
then the issues remedied. I mean, still find the principal and.
No, but are you going
Let
as a
them know.
parent or as a
I mean,
You're going to be seen as both.
both?
In their eyes, you're going to be seen as.
you always have that persona of both. However, making sure you don't overstep as well. I know going onto my child's campus and I'm volunteering, I send an email saying, hey, I will be on your campus for 6 hours volunteering as a parent. You know, letting them know. And of course, there's policy in place that tells you how to do that. And it's in your board operating procedures as well. But making sure, why would you go to the superintendent? If you're a parent, you should be following the chain of command as well. And not calling the superintendent.
That principal's going to let that superintendent know, hey.
Yes, the board member was
The
here.
board
The
member
door
was
was
here.
propped open. If they call you,
Yeah,
just
they call
FYI.
it. They shut it. They notified me. I mean, I know where that goes. I've heard those conversations at my house.
Yes.
Yeah, and it shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean,
It shouldn't have to go to a superintendent about a door being propped, right?
Right.
Other issues.
Yeah,
But this is
But they're covering their.
making a mountain out of a
CYA.
molehill. I mean, yeah, they're just.
Yeah, but yeah, just let the principal know, and then the principal can figure out why that door was propped open and make
Yes.
whatever changes.
Especially since we are getting audited left and right, and we don't know when it's
And then
happening.
you build. I will tell you this. Then you build a really good rapport
with your principal.
with the principal as a board member, and also with the staff, knowing you're not going to run and you're
Snitch.
going to snitch. Well, I mean, this is a major deal. Not going to snitch every little time you're on campus.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you don't want them to
creates a
dread
good
that you're
trust.
coming on the
They got to
campus.
trust the board too.
Exactly. And it can be a difficult balance, right? Because they do see you as a board member, even though you're there checking in as a parent or whatever. But making sure to follow the chain command as well. Okay, scenario 3. It's a trick question, I will say that. A board member goes to the board president and says, I would like to put the student dress code on the agenda for discussion.
Yeah. We need
Well,
two.
What do you mean? Like,
Who do we go to, or what do you
like,
ask?
yeah.
You know,
Board member goes-
is this appropriate for a board member to go to the board president and say, I would like to put the student dress code on the agenda for discussion?
I don't think so.
I think so.
Well,
I think so.
I mean,
Just
I
like
think
that,
so.
just as blanket as black and white that is. No.
Just like that.
But
If
it's
the
I
board
don't
president
like
would
that.
the board president would need to ask further questions and say, okay, what issues are we having with the dress code?
right.
And then you can bring it up to your soup. The board member can bring it up to the soup and just say, are we having problems? I mean, because it may just be one board member's problem. I mean, if the school's not having,
What if you have two people that say, we want this on the agenda?
I mean, I
for
guess they
discussion?"
could go on the
I thought
agenda,
if
but
we have
Or-
two people,
or-
if you
But
have
we
two,
can't
if it's
discuss
appropriate.
that, right? Like, if it was them, like, let's just say it's Trey and Kevin. that want to put it on the agenda, and somehow I hear about it. Can I call and be like, what is your reason behind it?
I don't know how you heard about it, April.
What if one of them told me?
Well, then they have to talk to the president, so that is how many people are.
Okay.
So they should never, depending on your board operating procedures, right? Some districts have, you just need, one person can put anything on the agenda.
Ours is two. Ours
Some
is
is
two.
two, right? And within 10 days or so on. But the tricky part is
Yes.
that this is for discussion, it's not for action, because we don't take action on dress code. That's administrative by nature.
Yes, it's in the
And-
handbook.
Yes, and so we don't take action. So that was the key word, discussion. You can discuss it all you want. You know, you can put it on the agenda and discuss it.
So what if we vote on
And-
this year then?
And then you're
You
going to
don't
open
vote.
up a can of worms because
Yes,
the
you
paper's
will.
going to write that they discussed
See, here's
the
the
dress
thing,
code and blah,
the
blah, blah.
handbook is not
That's right.
something that you all approve. It's not an item that the handbook doesn't get approved. Because it used to, but it's not anymore. Because everything that's in the handbook is in policy somewhere. You approve policy, okay? And that the rule says, or the law says, that we can't put anything in the handbook that's not already in policy. So we just tweak what's in the handbook in terms of specifics on the student code of conduct, but it's already in policy. So you're actually, policy is what you're in charge of. We're in charge of the
We
handbook.
discussed dress code.
Remember we talked about this in the grading guidelines?
Yes.
Which I said, you're not approving this, I'm just reviewing it with you because
Yeah.
She's
that's
just
what
being
it was.
informative.
I'm just
Yes.
informing you, right.
So you can have that discussion and, say your feedback or whatever, but it's not something you vote on.
Which is what we did, and you guys were positive about the changes, and so now that gets out into the community, which, by the way, teachers were dancing in the streets about the changes, so we did something they liked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Well, look at there.
You've heard the opposite?
No,
Okay.
I've heard good. No.
So,
I'll say that.
discussion. Okay, so the basic roles of the board we talked about, these are the 5 important things, right? Actually, I should go one by one. Responsible school governance. What does that mean? We talked about working as a team cohesively, and that is responsible school governance. When you're doing your due diligence, you all are working together to move your district forward. You're being responsible and you're holding each other accountable as well, right? We have high expectations. Lots of times we hear of the high expectations for the superintendent, high expectations of our students, but we need to have high expectations of ourselves as well. And so that's where that social contract will help you have those high expectations and teach you how to work on a different level, a cohesive team of 8. So high expectations for all. Conditions for success. This one's a good one that always comes up. So our responsibility as a board member is setting up the conditions for success. So for example, if I say, Superintendent Rebecca, the board has voted, we think CTE is so important, we want it to be the forefront of our district. And then the superintendent comes with a plan and says, oh, great, fabulous, we want to increase our certifications in CTE, and this is the plan. We're going to offer these 10 new courses. And then the board is like, we're not going to fund that. No, absolutely not. We're not going to give you that 2 teachers that you need. No, we're not going to give you, whatever the case may be. Are you setting up the conditions for success?
No.
Absolutely not. So if you are putting something as a goal or tasking your superintendent to do something, decrease the dropout rate or whatever, and then they come up with a legitimate plan and say, here is the plan on how to address this, and then you're like, no, we're not going to fund it, we're not going to do it, then you are not setting up that condition for success. So you are failing your district, right? So that's an important piece, is setting up the conditions for success and not saying, well, it wasn't my idea, so I don't want to fund it. And I'm going to get 3 more people to go along with me and not fund this, even though that was your goal, was to decrease the dropout rate or increase the CTE certifications. District accountability, again, accountability used to be a negative word. It's not anymore. We do want accountability, right? We want to make sure that we are responsible to the taxpayer and to the students of our community. So making sure you're holding the district accountable doesn't mean that we're going to say, our district stinks in bilingual education. They're the worst. No, we have challenges in our district that we're still trying to fix from the previous superintendent or from a previous time, but we're working on it. And we have a plan moving forward. Community engagement, like April talked about. We want to engage our community, right? And talk to our community and listen. But again, you are the ambassador to the district. So if I go out to Subway and I'm in line and I'm talking bad about the district, or I'm like, oh, that's right, Cindy, that principal is the worst, and I'm a board member or I'm a staff member, how does that look? Does that instill confidence in your community?
No.
Absolutely not. And you know that negative news travels so much faster than the positive things that you have done in the past several months that you've had a new superintendent. So that community engagement is important. So when all your little arrows, you remember the beginning, all those arrows going everywhere, when all of you are moving in the same direction, all of you know your roles and responsibilities, then you can have that success. Like I said, Ron, when you weren't here, we were those arrows in my district, on my board. And not until we lined up did we get the success that we needed for our students. And we're not 100% yet, but we are on our way to that. So, we know we are stronger together when you work together and talk about it, and don't assume anybody's intent without talking to them, right? Assume those positive and noble intentions, just like your superintendent does when she talks to you, and she's probably thinking, oh my goodness, what in the world are they saying right now? You know, she knows you're coming from a positive place, right?
Here comes April again.
So there is my email and my phone number, so jot it down because you can definitely contact me about any of those questions. Yes,
No, Dahlia's taking a
Text
picture
me,
of
text me.
it. Send it to us.
I got it. I'll send it to y'all.
Will you send it?
Yes.
I gotcha.
Because we are having Board Officers Academy that starts in January. That's the online that I do. So who are my board officers? Okay, so you three, and anybody who is thinking of being a board officer too. You learn about Robert's rules, you learn about all those things. So I do that in January. I'll start that, and it's one time a week for 7 weeks that we do it. And
Is it an hour a week?
It's
or-
an hour.
Oh, an hour.
And
yeah.
so you
Okay.
will pick either the lunchtime or the evening choice, but it's online. And then what's really cool about that is, it's online. And what's cool about that is you get 3 hours of coaching with me. So then I will meet with you, not 3 hours at one time, but we'll set up 1 hour appointments, and you can ask anything you ever wanted to ask. And we can do scenarios.
Okay.
And we act out too and everything. So it's pretty neat.
And the district pays for that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we pay
I'd
for
be
that.
like, April, can you quit signing up?
And then we can do the whole public forum thing. But now I will entertain questions. I know public forum is a big thing, right? So
Yes.
ask me your questions about public forum.
So I guess one of the biggest issues we're having is, well, before we were having issues with people getting signing up, and here's 3 minutes, right? They get 3 minutes. We'd have like 4 or 5 people sign up for 3 minutes, and then they would supposedly donate their time to one person, and so we came in and I changed that, and I said we specifically wrote on there that time could not be donated, even though it says in there that a person can only speak for 3 minutes, but for whatever reason the community had been allowed to do that for a while. So, but we changed that. But now the issue is just the animosity and just disrespect when.
The same person over.
Well, we really just have
Same
one person right
over
now.
and over that's just very negative and
They're an
tries
attorney.
to degrade our board, but it's never anything
Positive.
an actual problem. She's coming to insult us.
Yes.
And
I think the
picking
last-
something off the agenda is just, I don't know.
I think the last
So-
two board meetings, the last one was the first one that I've missed. And I'm glad I wasn't here because I think these last two board meetings, she has, the one where she came in and got on to us for calling her out on not sticking to the agenda in her discussion. You know, she to me, it was an outburst. She got mad.
Oh, the meeting
And-
before.
Yeah, the meeting before. And in this last meeting, she takes unprofessional shots at our superintendent
Yes.
and our new
Yeah,
CFO that was totally and completely uncalled for.
I missed that.
Is there any way, anything that we can do? She's
She's gonna keep
not
coming.
happy
She's not gonna
unless
stop.
unless she's stirring the pot. And
Sure.
I mean,
She's
I
using
don't know
it.
if you heard me before the meeting started or before we started tonight, but she is actually referring to us as a bunch of jack.
A's in public,
Out
in
in
the
the
community.
community.
Yeah.
And
She did it at a session meeting at the Presbyterian Church the other night.